Royal weddings are the stuff of legend, aren't they? They're grand public spectacles watched by hundreds of millions. We all picture the huge cathedral, the cheering crowds, the priceless jewels, and that magnificent, flowing gown. It's a formula of pomp and pageantry that basically defines the British monarchy. But what happens when a senior royal decides to just toss that formula aside? What if the Queen's only daughter chose a path of quiet rebellion, with a wedding so private and modest it was almost a secret? This is the story of how Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, defied tradition to marry the man she loved. It's a story that starts with a scandalous affair that rocked the palace and ends with a ceremony that broke the mold. To understand the quiet wedding, you first have to look at the very public one that came before it. Back in 1973, a 23-year-old Princess Anne walked down the aisle of Westminster Abbey to marry Captain Mark Phillips. He was a dashing Olympic gold medal winning equestrian and what the papers called a commoner. The nation was absolutely captivated. An estimated 100 million people tuned in to watch the ceremony, a grand affair fit for the Queen's only daughter. Anne and Mark had met, fittingly, in the elite world of equestrian sports where they both excelled. With two children, Peter and Zara, and their shared passion for horses, they seemed to embody a modern, sporty version of royal life. But behind the gates of their Gatcombe Park estate, the fairy tale was falling apart. By the mid-1980s, the press was filled with rumors of marital strain. The couple was rarely seen together, and whispers of affairs surrounded them both. Their separation announcement in 1989 merely confirmed what many had suspected for years. The marriage was over in all but name. In a classic bit of palace understatement, their statement said, "There are no plans for divorce proceedings." It was a move designed to quiet public chatter, but the real story was about to explode into the open. As one relationship was publicly falling apart, another was quietly beginning. In 1986, a respected Royal Navy commander named Timothy Laurence was appointed as an equerry to Queen Elizabeth II. His job put him in close contact with the royal family, including Princess Anne. A friendship developed, one that grew closer as Anne's marriage to Mark Phillips unraveled. Then, in 1989, that private friendship became a public scandal. The Sun newspaper revealed that personal letters written to Princess Anne had been stolen from the palace. While the paper didn't name the sender, the intrigue was huge. Who was writing intimate letters to the Queen's still married daughter? In a rare and pretty extraordinary move, Buckingham Palace issued a statement confirming the letter writer's identity. The stolen letters were addressed to the Princess Royal by Commander Timothy Laurence, the Queen's equerry. We have nothing to say about the contents of personal letters sent to Her Royal Highness by a friend which were stolen and which are the subject of a police investigation. The letters were never published, but insiders claimed they were intensely personal and philosophical. One source told People magazine that it was clear Laurence was potty about her. The revelation of this deep, personal connection between Anne and Timothy turned their private relationship into a matter of national obsession and really cemented the end of her first marriage. And the wildest part, to this day, nobody knows who stole those letters. The stolen letters were the final straw. While Anne and Mark Phillips had been living separate lives for years, This public confirmation of her new relationship made a divorce inevitable. For the royal family, however, divorce was still a major headache. The Queen, as head of the Church of England, was in a particularly tricky spot. The pretense that they might reconcile officially ended in 1991. With the confirmation that Mark Phillips had fathered a child during an affair back in 1985, in April 1992, Buckingham Palace announced that Princess Anne had filed for divorce. The proceedings were incredibly swift, and their 18-year marriage was legally over just days later. This was a huge moment. While not the first royal divorce, for a senior royal, the monarch's own child to divorce and prepare to remarry was a sign of a monarchy being forced to face the modern realities of relationships. Anne's divorce wasn't just the end of a chapter. It was clearing the path for a new life with the man who had been waiting in the wings. With the divorce finalized, Princess Anne was free to marry Timothy Laurence. He proposed with a beautiful, understated engagement ring, a cabochon sapphire with small diamonds on either side. True to their desire for privacy, their engagement was the complete opposite of the fanfare around Anne's first. There was no big televised interview or staged photo shoot. Instead, the palace announced their intention to marry just a week before the wedding, a clear signal this was going to be on their terms. This decision perfectly reflected the couple. Anne, always known for her no-nonsense attitude, and Laurence, a discreet and respected naval officer, had already been through a public scandal together. They had zero interest in the spectacle of a major state event. Their engagement was a quiet promise, a prelude to a wedding that would be defined by its intimacy, not its grandeur. On December 12, 1992, Princess Anne married Commander Timothy Laurence. But this wedding looked nothing like her first. There was no Westminster Abbey, no glass carriage, and no cheering crowds. The couple faced a big problem. At the time, the Church of England didn't allow the remarriage of divorced people if their former spouse was still alive. A church wedding in England was simply off the table. So Anne did what she has always done. She found a practical, clever solution. The couple chose to marry in Scotland at the small Crathy Kirk near Balmoral Castle. The Church of Scotland has a more lenient view on remarriage, allowing them the religious service they wanted. The choice was its own quiet act of rebellion. The ceremony itself was a world away from the 1973 global TV event. Only about 30 guests attended, mostly close family. The guest list included the Queen, Prince Philip, and Anne's children, Kipita and Zara, Prince Charles, whose own separation from Princess Diana had just been announced 3 days earlier, was also there. Diana herself was not, though she sent her best wishes. Anne's outfit reflected the day's spirit perfectly. She wore a simple, elegant white jacket over a modest, knee-length dress, with a spray of white heather in her hair instead of a tiara. Timothy Laurence wore his Royal Navy uniform. The service was brief, lasting less than 30 minutes. As the newlyweds emerged, they were greeted by the sound of bagpipes and a small group of well-wishers. By choosing this path, Princess Anne became the first child of a British monarch to remarry after a divorce, quietly setting a new precedent. That quiet wedding was the start of a partnership that has now lasted over 3 decades. Unlike royal couples who are often seen in carefully staged photo ops, Princess Anne and Sir Timothy Laurence have built a relationship on something deeper. You can see it in their public appearances, which are less about big romantic gestures and more about a quiet, easygoing intimacy. You'll often spot them lost in conversation, sharing a private joke, or just seeming to genuinely enjoy each other's company at official events. Theirs is a bond built on mutual respect and a shared understanding of the pressures of royal life. Sir Timothy, who was knighted by the Queen in 2011, has blended seamlessly into the family, becoming a steady, supportive presence at Anne's side. He never received a peerage or title upon marriage, another choice that showed their desire for a more private life. He's been a quiet anchor for the Princess Royal, a true partner who understood the world he was marrying into because he had already served it for years. Their marriage is often called a meeting of minds, a partnership of equals that has given a stable foundation to one of the hardest working members of the royal family. Princess Anne's story is all about forging your own path, finding a way to balance public duty with personal happiness. If you're fascinated by the stories of royals who break the rules, make sure you subscribe to our channel for more history and scandals. I'd love to know what you think in the comments. Do you admire Princess Anne's choice to go for a quiet, private wedding? The story of Princess Anne and Sir Timothy Laurence's wedding is one of scandal, duty, and private love. It starts with the collapse of a storybook marriage and a scandal revealed through stolen letters. But it ends with an act of quiet defiance. A wedding held far from the spotlight on their own terms. By choosing a tiny church in Scotland, Princess Anne put her commitment to Timothy Laurence above the rigid traditions of the monarchy. Their wedding wasn't a public show but a private declaration, and it marked the beginning of one of the most stable and enduring partnerships in the modern royal family. For over 30 years, Sir Timothy has been a constant, supportive figure by her side as she carries out her relentless schedule of duties. Their story is a fascinating look at how, behind the crowns and titles, the Windsors are a family whose private struggles often become public property. Princess Anne chose a quiet corner for herself, proving that sometimes the biggest statements are made not with grand displays, but with quiet conviction.